Thanks for joining me in another episode of Sparks Backyard Garden. So today is going to be all about garden planting. Whenever it comes to basic garden planting, first is definitely going to have to be about soil. Soil is key. With good soil, your plants will be more productive, they'll be more healthy, you'll have a better overall growing season. Soil is going to provide nutrition for your plants. So the soil composition, the things that go into the soil, it's super important that you pay attention to that. Assume that your soil is not good enough. You want to amend your soil. The best thing to do is get a simple soil test. You can get those online, you can get those at your big box stores. They're available on Amazon. Super simple to find. Your next step, regardless of what that soil test tells you, is add compost. It's going to add moisture retention. It's going to add soil drainage. It's going to add nutrition. So that organic material in the compost is key for plant production and, again, plant overall health. In my raised beds, I like a good combination of some type of compost, peat moss, and vermiculite. Peat moss adds to the soil's ability to retain moisture. It can get that moisture, it holds on to it for quite a while, but you don't want to let it dry out completely because it can become quite hydrophobic. It's difficult to get re-moistened once it dries out completely. And then vermiculite. When you use it along with peat moss, it really helps retain some more moisture, and that's important whenever you're out in a raised bed. I've used it in the past and I've had really good luck with it so far. Some people like to use perlite. There's nothing wrong with that. It helps with drainage, but it doesn't hold on to any moisture. Number 2, make sure that you're planting at the right time. You want to make sure that you're not trying to plant the cold crops in the wrong time of the season. And conversely, you want to make sure that you're not trying to plant the warm summer or hot summer crops in the cool part of the season. For example, we have our brassicas. That's going to be anything that's cauliflower, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts. Those type of plants in that brassica family, they prefer cool weather. So those are going to be the things that I like to start indoors about 6 to 8 weeks before the first frost. That way I can have an advantage, a jump on the season, and I can enjoy my crops a little bit earlier than if I was to plant them straight into the ground. You can also go to your garden center, your big box stores, and you can purchase those plants already grown, already with a small start, and you'll have a good crop in the season as well. In the growing season, your warm summer crops are going to be things like squash, cucumbers, melons, tomatoes especially. You want to get those in the ground once your daytime temperatures are in the 70s, nighttime temperatures need to be in the high 50s at least, preferably in the 60s. But as long as you can get them in the ground and it's not going to be too chilly outside, you'll be pretty safe. And that's what's going to allow you for peak production. Going back to the cold weather crops, you can put the cold weather crops in the ground later, but typically they just don't perform as well. They don't produce as well. Their production tends to be not on the sweet side as much as if it's grown in the cool weathers. So I just prefer to get those either early in the season or definitely also later in the season in the fall. Number 3 is location. Location is so important for a number of reasons. You've got to think of the relationship to the sun as to where you're going to put your garden. Check for the sun in the area. Check for the shade in the area. Sometimes early on, we tend to put our sun-loving crops in a really good spot, but late in the season, sometimes they can get too much sun. So an idea for that would be to make sure that they have that 6 to 8 hours of sun, but maybe if you can pay attention to where the sun is in relation to the later months in the hot growing season, that can help you decide, do I want to plant a taller crop maybe in front of that shorter crop, so it can provide a little bit of afternoon shade, which can help the overall plant health. When it comes to vegetables, vegetables need and love at least 6 to 8 hours of sun per day. Notice I said at least, because more is better whenever it comes to those vegetables. Also for location, do you have easy access to water? So just think about it. If you have a smaller sized garden, it might make sense for you to just have a watering can. So you can take your can, fill it up, take it over to the garden, pour it over the soil, and be done with it. But if you have a larger sized garden, you're gonna have to plan for something different. It's not always feasible to be able to haul that water over to the growing space. Another simple idea is make sure that you have easy access to it especially if it's gonna be something that you use often. If you like to use herbs in your kitchen, can you grow those herbs really close to where you can just go out directly from the kitchen and snap off some rosemary or snap off some basil? So that's also key to make sure that you're gonna be able to use those herbs readily or use those vegetables readily in your kitchen. Number 4, mulch. Most people mulch their landscapes. Some people mulch their vegetable beds, some people don't. I really believe in mulching your vegetable beds as well, because the vegetables, most of the time, those roots need a little bit of protection, and the foliage needs protection as well. So you've got to think first, mulch helps retain water. That's going to save you on your water bill. It's also going to provide less splashing on the underside of that foliage, which can lead to disease. In the vegetable garden, organic material tends to make the best type of mulch. So using compost. Compost can be integrated into the soil, but it can also be used as a top dressing. I use straw. I've had really good luck with straw. It's not easily compacted. If it does get a little dense, you can fluff it up really easy with a hand rake or even with your hand if you need to. You want to avoid using hay due to the seeds. It can cause a lot of extra work for you if you have seeds being dropped from that hay that you're going to have to deal with throughout the growing season. Using that organic matter as mulch, it's also beneficial for the water retention, but it's also beneficial for the soil. That mulch, especially if it's going to be organic matter, it's going to break down and amend that soil throughout the growing season. Number 5, make gardening easy on yourself. Learn to grow. It's not magic. There's nothing magic about gardening. It takes practice. There's no such thing as a green thumb. People with a green thumb, like myself, I have killed more plants than I've not killed. It's just taken a lot of persistence over time and learning from my mistakes. I've learned most of what I know of gardening through again, some mistakes, also watching videos. There's so much information out there from other YouTubers and lots of different articles about any different aspect of gardening or growing. And there's tons of free information available out there. Number 6, have the right plants. I know I can't grow an orange tree in my area unless it's in a pot, but that's going to be something that I have to move in the off seasons. So I just prefer not to do that. Can you grow peaches? I could grow peaches here. Unfortunately, I don't have the space for a peach orchard in my location. But think about what space that you have. Can you grow different fruits that you might enjoy? So do some research. What can you successfully grow in your area? Number 7, know your growing zone. In the US, it's called the USDA hardiness zone. You can Google that and plug in your zip code and find out instantly what zone that you're in. I'm in zone 6B, so I've used that over the years to know exactly what I can and can't successfully grow. The growing zone, it's just based on an average of your low temperature in winter. So know your frost dates. When can you start growing according to that average frost date? When's the last frost date in your area? You can use that to identify the length of your growing season. Last year we had quite a late frost, so I lost some crops. I had some crops that got frost burned kind of early on, and they didn't do so well. But luckily we had a pretty decent summer. I got to go back, replant some things, and had a successful growing season anyway. Number 8, anticipate your challenges. In my area, I know that I'm gonna have to be battling early blight, late blight, powdery mildew, sometimes Japanese beetles. I'm expecting those things to happen this year. So I also like to keep up with a little bit of a journal so that I know every year approximately when those issues are going to hit my area. It's not random. They are going to come pretty much at the same time every year. So you can anticipate that and follow me on my videos. I'm going to be making videos on how to deal with different pests and different diseases that you can anticipate for at least in growing area 6B. And number 9, enjoy yourself. Have fun with gardening. It should not be a chore. Sometimes we'll start with something, it's a bigger project than what we need to start with. If you're just beginning, start small. Don't try to make your entire backyard a garden. I've always started small. Over the years, I've figured out the time that I have to invest and the time that I want to invest in my garden for a successful vegetable garden. Doing your research beforehand will help you enjoy gardening more. Again, in soil improvement, selecting the right plants, making sure that you get the timing right, making sure that you're getting your light and location correct. So all of those things are going to help you be a more successful gardener. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel.